Hello folks, another interesting day today, I think in various ways. I think that there's been quite a few ups and downs in the kind of visceral fabric of today's woven nature. I think that there's lots of things which were quite nice about sitting in the garden in the sunshine. It was pretty sick, it was pretty sort of like uneventful, surrounded by other people with similar mental ill health to myself, and a fantastic game of Monopoly which we played, which unfortunately I didn't win, because as you can see I'm obviously shit at that sort of thing. What I would say is that Monopoly is a very good game, especially for teaching people about the dark nature of capitalism and the kind of checkered intersection between the risks associated with speculation and accumulation and the kind of hedging your bets that we all have to do in terms of the kind of speculatory nature of things. And I don't mean kind of profits always directly related to risk. What I mean in the sense is that there's always a kind of in life's a bit like a game of Monopoly, isn't it? Watch that shit film Zeitgeist, Moving Forward. At the beginning there's a guy and he talks about playing Monopoly with his grandmother in the summer, and they say the main thing that it taught me playing this game of Monopoly, I used to try and rob these people blind, and the main thing that it taught me was that there was a kind of he says, you know, the best lesson was that at the end of the game it all goes back in the box. Everything goes back in the box. And I do ascribe to that to some sense, but there's a huge amount of trust involved in kind of like business, and I think more than anything you've got to trust yourself, because you can't really trust anybody else. I mean, I do to a large extent, but in some ways I don't. Do you know what I mean? I'm kind of definitely waffling horse shit there, but I do think that there's a kind of there's a wisdom in Monopoly. Kind of look a bit like a wise old man. Now I'm growing a beard. I could probably do an aftershave commercial. I'm not going to, but I would like it if people would put in some properly kind of structured requests for broadcasts, because I'm interested, don't get me wrong. The last video hasn't had very many views though, unfortunately. How many views did we get? I mean, apart from the people in the hospital that just watch them in case I say anything that I shouldn't be saying, which is probably all of the multidisciplinary team, I'm sure, as that's their role as part of their clinical directive and their duty of care to the patients, and for no other reason than that, not that they find them entertaining. I'm sure I've got 12 views in 21 hours, which is a palindrome, if you like, and maybe that's an oxymoron. Maybe I'm an oxymoron. But it's taken me 3 minutes and 40 seconds to explain that sick diatribe of Monopoly, and also how many people aren't watching this or requesting me to go live. Just give it a try. You know what I mean? Give it a try. Like, you know, get in touch with me, and I'll go out into the world, and I'll go live, you know, and you can see where I am and who I am, and I can pick you a flower or buy something from the shop, or do anything within reason. I'm not going to expose my myself. I suppose I could do, if you ask me nicely. If it's on Twitter, then we could do that. If it pleases people and gets me some followers and some likes and some views. It's really shit being in mental hospital. My last ward round, my doctor, my consultant psychiatrist, been away for the last 2 ward rounds, which quite often happens when you get 2 consultant psychiatrists, and you get sort of one of them who stays there for a bit, and is like a specialist consultant. You know, they like specialise in something, but they're not necessarily your main, what's called your RC, your responsible clinician. But if the responsible clinician goes away, see, I can't talk. Responsible clinician goes away, then you're left with this other person that can still apparently make decisions about your medication, but isn't responsible for your care at all. So there's kind of two sides to that coin, I guess. Let's read the news, shall we? Let's just have a little look. Tom Cruise begs studio execs to bump Christopher Nolan's Oppenheimer from IMAX's screens. Nuclear weapons are well scary, and this was that's a thing. I mean, I've always had a kind of like. I remember in school, I think I ripped off a Zanussi advert, and I wrote. I designed a poster which had a nuclear explosion, a mushroom cloud, with the misappliance of science, which I think I saw on a Zanussi advert or on a billboard somewhere. I think it was in Maidenhead or Slough. My grandma used to live on number 62 Great Hill Crescent. My grandma Enid Finch and her husband Derek Finch. They used to be textile scientists. And just behind them, they were building for years. I used to go there and spend my half-term summer holidays and my summer holidays with them. And just behind their house, they were building a massive roundabout. And it took them years and years and years to build. And it was somewhere kind of like around there that I found out that I saw this billboard in a kid, and I ripped it off in an art lesson in year 7 at South Dartmoor Community College in Ashburton. That was great. I won't be getting my kit off again. The Full Monty's, Robert Carlyle on the role of a lifetime. Yeah. Well, I thought that was a fucking fantastic movie. I don't know what it was really about. I don't want to become a movie buff, constantly talking about good films. If you didn't see the article in the last episode about Starship Troopers and the links to the war, check it out, because it's a really thought-provoking article. Something about Gucci, something about BMW M4, vaulting in Aston Martin, somehow drives away. Yeah. It's a deal, it's a steal, it's sale of the fucking century. There we go, that's quite interesting. Universal basic income of £1,600 a month to be trialled in 2 places in England. Now that would make a real difference to people's lives. And if I thought they would actually do it, I mean, I don't know, it's being trialled. Like maybe it's definitely a step in the right direction. I think that I think it'd be great if they didn't have to. Do you know what I mean? Like, but I'm not averse to the idea at all. I think a universal basic income. People shit on people on benefits for lots of different reasons, but ultimately, money, as a bit like the kind of cyclical nature of money being spent. How many pennies in a pound goes back to Tesco? It's a really interesting statistic if you look at the economics side of things. But if you look at also the kind of the velocity of money. There's when I used to be involved with Positive Money, I used to volunteer and donate with a small direct debit to an organisation called Positive Money, who were making some real groundbreaking work in campaigning for the end to fractional reserve banking. Check them out. I don't know what they're doing at the moment. I mean, I saw one of their videos the other day. It was kind of like a 6 out of 10 with a brilliant graphic where it showed money existing as debt with a kind of string attached to it, which I thought was it's very difficult to visually display in 3 minutes in a viral to people who know nothing about economics, how economists and people at LSE, London School of Economics, are taught economics wrong. But debt-based currency, fiat currency, leaves everybody enslaved, and it's not money, it's debt. And when it gets paid back, it disappears. But we're all just trading debts with each other. So for every pound in the economy, someone else has to be sort of £1 in debt, which is just an absurd system. You know, there's loads of different ways of sort of paraphrasing it or using creative similes or metaphors to kind of like, you know, work it into a, you know, factorially tangible way. They can go, oh right, I see what you're saying now. So coins and notes and digital money are 2 different things. How does this work? But the money gets spent back into the economy. The equation is M times V equals P times T, which I don't really understand. But what it stood for, I went to this Christian lodge with a very nice gentleman called Alistair McConaughey, and a load of monetary reformers and social creditors who were mostly older people who did like a biannual or annual meeting of these kind of social creditors to discuss the money system and money in general and economics and better sort of socially cohesive ways of managing our financial affairs. And yeah, so money times velocity, M times V, is equal to P times T, which is price times transactions. So the money in the economy and the velocity that it moves around, as in not sat under people's mattresses, but being spent into the economy. So a universal basic income, although that takes money away from the state, typically that money won't end up under the mattress. That money will be spent into the economy because the cost of living is high. What will happen is that this will just fan the flames of the economy and help things work in a much more kind of direct way. But that's The Guardian 3 hours ago, which I think is a fantastic thing. I mean, if they could do that, it'd be amazing. An amazing thing. Strawberry moon captured over England. That'd be nice. I wish I could have seen that last night. It's a massive moon. I didn't stay up to watch it. I fell asleep for most of the day the other day, which was very weird. I don't think it was anything to do with the strawberry moon though. Although apparently as a Cancerian I'm ruled by the moon. Don't know how much I buy any of that. Don't know if, when do people think star signs start? Is it from like the date of, is it called not partition, I think it's called parition or something like that. It's the date of birth, when you birth, or is it the date of conception? The date that you're fertilised. Because I mean, who the fuck knows when their parents went to bed? Do you know what I mean? Like nobody really. Well, I mean, I guess it's approximately 9 months before you were born, but like it could be before or after the date. The cusp of the rising Libra Sagittarius Twizzler that no one really knows about. And I don't know, but I mean, I do adhere to the traits of Cancerian person, definitely. Awkward elevator ride, Chris Hemsworth and Arnold Schwarzenegger. Nobody hits like Netflix. Well, there we are. I don't know what to think of that. I don't really know who Chris Hemsworth is. I mean, I sort of do. Not really, though. Tragic deaths, COVID texts. That's quite an interesting idea. Domestic lifts powered by air. An elevator committed to the environment. The only one that works. If you can see the picture of the man there, he's got a ridiculous lift in his house. Which I don't think anybody's going to buy one of those lifts. But I mean, maybe they're affordable, who knows? What else have we got? Makers of Lightyear flop among Pixar job cuts by Disney. That's quite an interesting one. So Lightyear, I'm guessing, is a film about Buzz Lightyear. And Pixar used to be really good, but I don't really think... I used to love Toy Story. My mum used to love the bit in it that said virtual... There was a sign, right, that said virtual realty. And she used to think that was genius, like, because she had this kind of a very sort of quirky and intricate sense of humour. My mum was an incredible lady. The last thing I ever said to her, she was at Brambledown Nursing Home, and she hadn't had anything to eat or drink for several days because they said that she wasn't capable of eating or drinking, and she was heavily medicating and dying of adrenocarcinoma. And I went in there and gave her sort of like a glass of water, and I was sort of like, do you want some more? And she was kind of like, oh, and really fucking harrowing. And all these staff were kind of be like, no, she can't eat or drink. She's far too ill. Do you know what I mean? She's beyond the pale. And I phoned the GP, and Dr. Holly, his name was. I phoned the GP and sort of said, listen, I know she's dying, but this woman's saying is indicating to me that she really wants food and she really wants some water. And this syringe driver thing seems to be empty. Like, she doesn't appear to be on any sort of painkiller medication, but there's clearly something very wrong with her. She kind of had lockjaw, and oral hygiene hadn't been completed. It looked a bit like that thing out of Star Wars. It was really dark. Anyway, and so I was kind of like, the last day that I saw my mum and I said goodbye to her, I didn't really know what to say. And I said it'll all be all right in the end. And if it's not all right, it's not the end. That was the last thing I ever said to my mum. And it's like some fucking tacky keyring that you'd buy in a petrol station. Do you know what I mean? Like I really, in a sense, I didn't regret it, because I was sort of trying to give her some sense that, like, I don't know what you say, see you on the other side, like, you're dying now. Do you know what I mean? Like, I was only going to see her like every day, every kind of 12 hours, every 48 hours, every, kind of, sometimes it was 36 hours. They moved her to a place that it took about an hour to drive to. It's in near Denbury, which is fucking miles away from, not that far as the crow flies away from where we live, but it's down loads of country lanes. She was at this big care hostel called Rowcroft, and she got moved to this other one called Brambledown Nursing Home, where she passed away. And there was I got all of our care records, and there was quite a lot of interesting things there. But yeah, it'll all be all right in the end. And if it's not all right, it's not the end. That's what we said when I said goodbye to her, and that was like fucking really, like, there's I don't regret it. I suppose I don't regret it. Like she probably was aware that I'd said something along, said I love you lots of times and kind of like that sort of thing. But I hate that shit. I fucking hate that shit. Like, I don't know what, palliative care. I don't know what you deem as palliative care. Danny Boyle names the best action sequence in the movie. Let's have a look. What does he say? I love Danny Boyle's films. Trance is a fucking fantastic film. Slumdog Millionaire came out when we went to India. Me and my sort of girlfriend and another couple, we went out to India in like whenever it was, 2008, for a few weeks. We went to Goa, and it was kind of like, Slumdog Millionaire was kind of like on all the billboards when we went out there. It had just come out, and it was like the kind of theme to our journey was this imaginative, kind of beautiful, colourful exploration of, and it was so relevant to me. Like, I've had, giving money to me is a bit like giving water to a fish, or like trying to give a guy who owns a private island a grain of sand. Like, it's sort of, it doesn't really have any value to me. Like, it doesn't have any sort of like, it's hard to explain, but I see it as a kind of, as a tokenistic iconography of slavery, ultimately. Like, and I don't. If there was me and a mate of mine, Ben, took part in this. We volunteered at this thing at the canteen in Bristol, which is like a sort of this thing. Coexist. It's sort of like used to be a parking lot and a squat for years, and they turned it into sort of like a really nice cafe bar on the ground floor, a whole load of serviced offices and a big sort of creative space. Anyway, we did this talk there, and it was like Free Cycle, the website. It's a website in Britain called Free Cycle, where you can get stuff for free. People are giving away. And there's people called Freegans in Bristol. There used to be a free shop in Bristol on this road called Gloucester Road, a really trendy boho road. And there was like this free shop where it was like, take what you want, leave what you can. So it was like a charity shop, but the charity was the local community, And we did this free economy feast, and we fed about 300 people, all on food that had been taken out of the bins of like Waitrose and Marks and Spencers and Tesco and Morrison's. and foraged food, food that had been given away, that had been thrown out by veg shops and like local businesses. And we made this massive feast, and we did all these talks. There was a guy called Mark Boyle, I think his name is, who led this thing. But anyway, this, Slumdog Millionaire is all about this, the love of money, basically. Like, there's the guy who ends at the end, he ends up with all this cash, and it's like Mammon is like, I believe, the god of money. Anyway, this is an article from the 3rd of June by Joe Williams. Best action sequence in a movie. No stranger to directing action, acclaimed British filmmaker Danny Boyle has dipped his toe into the genre on multiple occasions, from the gritty handheld zombie chases of 28 Days Later in 2002 to the slick eye sequences in the psychological thriller Trance that came just over a decade later. The director has demonstrated a deft ability to create tension and get audiences' blood pumping. In fact, his resume boasts such an impressive list of titles that for a long time he was a serious contender for the latest James Bond, outlining before ultimately dropping out due to creative differences. I wish I could read properly still. And letting Kari Funanka take the reins. Fukunaga take the reins. Nevertheless, when Boyle states that a film has an incredible action sequence, you can trust that the man knows what he's talking about. The film in question, however, may come as something as a surprise. Whilst he touted Apocalypse Now as the ultimate action film and speaking to Rotten Tomatoes ahead of his release of his multi-Academy Award-winning 2008 fantastical drama Slumdog Millionaire, Boyle chose a particular gem of a British animation as a film containing the best action sequence, and it's not even a full feature film. Nick Park's second Wallace and Gromit short film, The Wrong Trousers, earned him the unique praise from Britain's most highly regarded filmmaker. Funnily enough, that the guy Ben, who was one of my mates, went to go and work for Ardman Animations for a bit, I believe. Don't quote me on that, I won't say a second name, but I believe so, the last time we had any contact, which was like about 10 years ago. Nick Park's one of the most underrated action directors in the world, said Boyle, before continuing to explain how the ending sequence of the film, which involves a high-speed chase scene on a model train track, made such a tremendous impression on him. Well, I won't read the rest of it. Anyway, Danny Boyle thinks that The Wrong Trousers is very good. Euro Millions ticket holder claims £111.7 million prize. I think I almost won the lottery once, but I don't care. It's very sad though. You think about people who lose their lottery tickets. It's almost like divine intervention, trying to save the day. For some people who are in a shit situation, if you like, I don't know, like it's kind of, you always see these unclaimed tickets and you just think, like, what difference that could have made. It's not so much, it's like if somebody's like, imagine if there's like something really, really underhand and bad going on. Do you know what I mean? Like, and that money, it's only going to buy material things for most people if they're just having a normal life. But like, if they're like, mum's a serial killer or like something like that, like if there's like some kind of really heavy shit which like could have just made a difference to people who are like not just poor but kind of in the midst of like badness. Like this is starting to sound a little bit suggestive and kind of like gutted. Why Paul McCartney was cut from the Pink Floyd album The Dark Side of the Moon. I never knew about that. Far Out magazine one day ago. I'm not going to read the article because we're 23 minutes in. In fact, I'm going to call it a day. I'm going to find one good article. Dr. Dre's level of excitement for Snoop Dogg's new album matches The Chronic, according to production. Fair play, gents. Look forward to that, won't you? More Oppenheimer. Christopher Nolan movie Denis Villeneuve calls a masterpiece. Well, I'll have to watch some Christopher Nolan movies. Hope everyone's had a lovely day. If you want me to go live, please get in touch. and come and see me in person, and phone me up if you want on the hospital phone. But thanks very much for your time today. Sorry I've wasted so much of it, 25 minutes, but I'm sure we'll get there in the end, you know. Cheers.